lied to you and about something very serious. The New York Times says the president ordered his former chief of staff to grant his son-in-law top secret security clearance against the recommendations of U.S. Intel and his top aides. Kelly wrote a memo about it. The White House counsel wrote a memo about it, both saying this was a wrong move. Then the president told us he played no role. So did his daughter. And now the White House says they don't discuss clearances. We have a very valuable guest here. You know Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey. He has a long-running feud with Jared Kushner, but this is all about full disclosure tonight. He's got a book. You can read about it in there. Is he willing to speak truth to power about this and other important matters like what's going on with Michael Cohen? What's going on in Congress? Maybe he spills more beans next week. The governor thinks this alone should send a chill up the president's spine. Listen.
I am in constant contact with the Southern District of New York regarding ongoing investigations.
About what? We have never had more weighty matters to deal with. So what do you say? Let's get after it. Big 48 hours raised all kinds of new questions about the president's judgment and those actively trying to shield him from scrutiny. You heard his disturbing comments regarding the death of Otto Warmbier. You saw what happened on the Hill yesterday with Michael Cohen laying out a roadmap of crimes he says President Trump committed before he took office and while he has been there. Now there's this. Remember all the controversy surrounding top security clearances for first son-in-law Jared Kushner? Remember how the president said he'd leave the decision to grant them to his former chief of staff. Listen to what he told you.
You tell General Kelly or anyone else in the White House to overrule security officials, the career?
No, I don't think I have the authority to do that. I'm not sure I do, but I wouldn't do it. Jared's a good. I was never involved with the security.
I was never involved with the security. According to the New York Times tonight, he lied. He ordered Kelly to get Jared top security clearance, overruling recommendations from Kelly, the CIA, and other top White House aides. This is heavy stuff. This isn't about lying about his weight or height anymore. Governor Chris Christie supports the president. What does he think of this? His new book is called Let Me Finish. You must read it to understand the depth of the relationship and his feelings about Kushner. I'm not going to waste time going into that tonight, but it's worth a read. Governor, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Chris.
This matters. Let's start with just the macro thing. Am I wrong to have serious reservations about whether this president can be believed?
Well, I write this pretty extensively in the book, Chris, that this is the biggest problem with having family in official positions in the White House, because it's much harder to be objective. It's much harder to handle it that way. So what does he do in this instance? At least as reported by the New York Times tonight. Jared wants that top secret security clearance. They're upset about the fact that John Kelly took it away from them based upon objections from both the FBI and the CIA. And then all of a sudden Jared gets it. And we now find out from this report that both John Kelly and Don McGahn, the White House counsel, wrote contemporaneous memos saying that they were overruled by the president. They were concerned about this decision. Now, I can tell you something. As having been a governor, I never had a staff member write a contemporaneous memo about one of my decisions.
They don't do that on a whim.
They just don't.
They do it to cover themselves in a situation that they're worried about exposure on. Fair point?
Exactly right.
Both of them did this.
Well, and the bad part, too, is that Ivanka went on ABC and said directly that her father had nothing to do with her clearance or her husband's clearance.
No hedging, straight-faced, right to camera.
And by the way, there were two comments that are in response today. One that came from the White House, where the White House said, we don't comment on security clearances.
Yes, since when?
And second one was from Abby Lowell.
Yes.
Who's Jared Kushner's lawyer, and probably still is. And he said, essentially, we are committing to what we were told at the time we communicated that to all of you. Boiled down, he's saying to them, this is what I was told at the time, and I communicated it to you, but he wouldn't warranty it any further. Those are things that both should be very disturbing to people. And again, Chris, it goes back to the familial relationship. It goes back to the idea that for any other staff member, I think the president would have a much easier time of saying, listen, no, I'm not getting involved.
Rob Porter.
Oh, but Porter was different. There's no evidence at this point that he overruled for Porter's security clearance.
He was playing with it. But I hear you about going back to family, and that creates.
And I think it's a real problem.
I think it's a real problem, but I think it is also a step sideways from the actual problem. The actual problem is this president has no problem lying to the American people about things he thinks he needs to. Fair point?
Well, I think that what he's done at times, which has been unfortunate, is, in my view, lie about things that he hasn't needed to lie about. That's worse in many respects, whether it's the Stormy Daniels payment or whether it's this instance. It doesn't serve him well, and it doesn't serve the country well. And, I understand that both of those things were very personal matters. One involved his son-in-law, what his son-in-law wanted. Another one involved an alleged relationship with a woman outside of his marriage. So I understand, and we saw in the Clinton administration there was problems with veracity on issues that on issues that were very personal, Chris. And okay, so I understand that, but I think that it doesn't serve. There's no way to defend, and I'm not going to, the New York Times story tonight, assuming it's true, and I have to assume it's true because the White House didn't deny it.
Mm-hmm. Look,
and nor did Jarrett's lawyer.
The memos, they know that there's paperwork there, and they know if they lie, it's going to be exposed on top of this lie.
You have to believe that's true.
But look, right now we're talking about this. If you stop talking, we will hear silence. That is the echo of the nothing coming from everybody in leadership of your party. They have said nothing about this. They sat in that hearing yesterday, beating Cohen over the head with his own lack of credibility. Fine. But Cohen lied about all the same things that the president did. And they never said anything to defend him. And they have never stood up to his lying. How can they keep their integrity?
Listen, I didn't think that it was a very good display yesterday. I watched all the hearings.
You're being too politic about
I'm not. No, I wouldn't have done it that way. And what I said was, I think one or two people should have gone after Michael Cohen on his credibility. But let's face it, we know he's a liar. We know he's a cheat. We know he's a thief. He's pled guilty to those things.
How do any of those things not apply to the President of the United States?
Here's the difference. The difference, Chris, is Cohen has admitted them in a court of law, under oath, and pled guilty.
But that's just the proof part, Governor.
But that's the important part, Chris. I mean,
no, it isn't.
It is.
We know
can't do that.
I can prove it right now that the president has done those same things.
But Chris, we have a presumption of innocence in this country regarding people. You respect that. I respect it. And so my point is Michael Cohen has blown through that.
Yes.
He's admitted it.
Yes.
My point on the congressional hearings was there were a couple ways to defend the president yesterday on the substance of what Cohen said. No one did it.
No one.
No one did it. I don't know. I will tell you, it was pretty easy to me. I was on another network commenting
ABC,
on this.
It's okay.
Yes.
It's my old home, too.
Right?
Very proud of that
Right.
place.
So, I was on there commenting. I said there were two things yesterday that came out from Cohen that I think are helpful to the president. The first one is that he said there was not one reason for the Stormy Daniels payment, but two. Mm-hmm. And that the second reason, beside a campaign, was that the president didn't want Melania to know, and that, in fact, he added to that tapestry by saying that he, in fact, lied to the First Lady about what the purpose of that payment was.
Although the precedent from the case that the only one they tried, but where the guy got acquitted the last time that we saw this with John Edwards, is that doesn't have to be the only reason. It could be one of the reasons.
Right.
So he could still have exposure.
But I think if you're a Republican advocating for the president, what you say is, the Southern District of New York or anybody else is not going to bring that kind of prosecution against the president after he leaves office.
True.
Because your best witness says there's two alternatives.
It's a mixed bag.
The defendant will say there's none.
And Cohen said, I don't know if he knew what the emails were that Roger Stone told him about.
Right.
I don't know that he knew that the meeting that his son took was with Russians. I don't have any proof of collusion. And I know he would never hurt his wife.
Right.
If Cohen were there just to blow up the president, he wouldn't have said any of those things.
I thought those
but he got no quarter from the right.
I thought those were moments of credibility for Michael. And that doesn't change, in essence, who he has been.
But here's what I don't get.
But let me just finish this one point, Chris, is that nobody in the Republican Party was making those statements. So my point to you is, if they're as much a slave of the president as you made out in your comments.
Do you feel differently?
Well, they either
help me.
I think if you were really doing that, you'd be more aggressive on offensive defense. But instead,
Governor, please.
all you're doing is going after the guy who's already been established to be a liar. I got bored after three of those sets of questions.
But how do you ignore another liar who happens to be president? You know, look, I'll give you the legal difference. I'll never go law for law in terms of you. Your mind is way too subtle and you understand it way too well. What I'm saying is this. You're right, he admitted it. But the other man is the president of the United States, and he lied about the same things. Told you he doesn't know who Felix Sater is. Told you he didn't know what the hush money payments were. He's lying to your face. Your party is supposed to stand up against this stuff. You railed against Clinton for it. You went after Obama when he said things that weren't true. This president lies at a rate that is exhausting, and nobody says a damn word.
I don't want to get too off the track here.
That is the track.
Hold on. Well, then I'm going to take it on a bit of a different track, but a parallel one, okay? Democrats weren't saying anything about Bill Clinton in 98, 99, nor did they stand up to do anything at all to undercut the president. The problem is that since the Clinton years, and it's gone on since the Clinton years, we have become so partisan, so blindly partisan in the national congressional scene and at the White House that nobody's willing to say anything against their party, even when they know it's wrong. Everybody knew that what President Clinton did for lying under oath was wrong, right? Everybody knew it. Democrats didn't say anything about it. You're criticizing the Republicans for the very same thing. It's a valid criticism. But my point to you is, it's not just a Republican problem. No, it is a political problem in our country when we're not willing to speak the truth.
The reason why someone like, this is my theory, the reason why Governor Christie didn't punch through in the primary was because you were still, even though renegade in your own right, even though outspoken in your own right, different, the disaffection, the hatred for the toxic political culture gave birth to somebody who would be seen as a virus to the same. Trump wasn't seen as an antidote. He was seen as a virus. You were a governor. You're part of the machine. Sure, you were an outlier, and you had your fights with the media and everybody else. But that's how he got in, because people expect politicians to lie. And they expect no integrity. But what I'm getting at, Governor, is where does it stop?
Well,
where does it stop with it? We've never seen lying like this.
I hope that what happens here now is that over the course of the next number of years, whether it's 2 or whether it's 6, that the country gets exhausted from all of this.
And then what happens?
And then I think the pendulum swings back.
To what?
Well, listen, I think that you rightly put, and I'll tell a quick anecdote from the book. My wife went door to door in New Hampshire, and when she introduced herself to someone, said, I'm Governor Christie's wife. She says, oh gosh, we love the governor. He's so smart and authentic and blunt and direct. I mean, we're voting for Trump, but we love your husband. And my wife said, well, if you love Chris, why are you voting for Trump? She goes, oh, honey, we don't need another politician. Okay, so your point, anecdotally, and in the election results, is absolutely right. I think the country needs to understand. I think Hillary had the same problem. I think the country needs to understand that we need to have a system again where people are willing to talk to each other. I will tell you, though, the biggest complaint I heard in New Hampshire when I was running for president was that I was nice to Barack Obama during Hurricane Sandy. The single biggest complaint I heard from Republican primary voters, that they despised the president so much that their view was that I should have somehow, given him the Heisman when he came to look at the 365,000 homes that were destroyed in my state. So what I'm telling you is that this feeling, this toxic feeling, has, in my view, been going on ever since the Clinton impeachment. And Ross Perot was a bit of the beginning of that. And move forward.
I'll give you the evolution.
Yep.
But now you have to deal with the solution, not just because it rhymes. Sure. What I'm saying is, you can't have your party keep dummying up. This Otto Warmbier stuff. I was with President Obama when he went to Cairo. He says, I want to make peace with the past. I want us to be better than we have been. You guys went crazy on him. You weak apologists talking to these people who are predators. Wasn't fair, in my opinion, not a fair characterization of a billion people, the Muslims. But now you have this president being an apologist for despot after despot. Well, I had one of my best producers scrub today because I didn't want to be wrong. Charlie says nobody in your leadership said a damn thing about what he said about Otto Warmbier being the wrong thing to say, other than Rick Santorum.
And I said it today.
Why don't they speak up?
I don't know, but what I will tell you is that they do know. No, they do deserve some. They do deserve some credit.
For what?
You now appears like you're going to have a vote in the Senate that is going to stop his use of national emergency powers for the building of the wall. Lamar Alexander announced, I think it was today, that he's going to vote against it. That
You
puts
think
it
the
at 51
Republicans will
votes.
go against it?
No, they now have 51 votes. There's 4 of the Republicans who have now said that they will not vote. That they will vote for the resolution. Well, if they veto it,
if he vetoes it,
they're not going to have enough to override the veto in either house. But the point is, that's a standing up to the president. There's nothing that the president cares more about than the wall. Nothing. Maybe trade. That's about it.
I shouldn't be. Look,
so
my
I think
it
deserves some credit.
Governor, this is such a low bar. It's such a flagrant violation of the power
How many times did Democrats vote against? Listen, Democrats voted with a margin of 1 vote to put Obamacare into place. They changed a large part of the entire national health care system based upon 1 vote and not 1 Republican vote. Listen, both parties have been suffering from this disease.
True.
And listen, I didn't have the choice. I didn't have the choice in New Jersey. I had a Democratic legislature for every day of my 2,920 days. So that required me, if I wanted to get anything done, to work with the other side, to work with Democrats, to find the good in Democrats, and to find ways that we could both get something so we could both win. Nobody cares about doing that anymore, Chris.
Right, but also you didn't antagonize the other side.
Oh, they differ.
No. But it's how you do it.
Yeah. Well,
antagonize, like you won't do your job, call them out. Fine. The American people should like that. They should reward that as leadership. Point out, be transparent. He lies all the time about things that matter, Chris, and nobody comes out against him on your side. I know you do. I'm saying you need the people in power at the time to do it. I just don't get it, and we're seeing it. Look, this clearance is a no-brainer. All right,
yep.
They got him. He lied about something. It matters. His daughter lied about it. Is a problem having family? 100%. That's why you usually have anti-nepotism laws.
And we do have
keep
it.
this out, but they don't cover this, right? So
they should have.
Right, but they don't. So fine. And now he doesn't even know why they're concerned about his son-in-law. He doesn't even know why they're concerned.
Here's my response to that. Is if he wanted to override it anyway,
right?
Because he said, I trust him, I know him,
sure,
I want him to be my guy. Regardless of the merits,
it's fine.
That's fine. The problem is, because it's family, you're worried about how people are going to react, gauge your objectivity, rightfully so. And so instead of announcing it, you obscure it, you cover it up.
Yeah,
and it's not, and it's not right, Chris. Like, listen, I read that when it came out about an hour and a half ago. I read it, and I have to tell you, from having written the book and experienced everything that I experienced in dealing with the family dynamic there, I wasn't, unfortunately, shocked, because I know it's any family, right? If your kids really want something and they're really on you about it, it affects you. Now, you hope you'd be able to stand up and say, if you don't think it's right, no, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
But you have a different feeling about your own children than you do about anything else.
It'd be one thing. I'd give it to you if he lied only about this. But he lies incessantly.
I understand it.
When he doesn't even need to.
I understand that.
We've never seen anything like it.
I understand that we could spend the evening tonight going over whatever it is.
I don't have enough time.
The Washington Post
Don Lemon would kill me. We'd be on till midnight.
Washington Post list or whatever. But I think tonight what people need to be examining in the light of what's happened over the last couple of days is everyone's got to be examining, okay, what really does matter? What are the issues? There's a lot of yelling and screaming, a lot of fire. Which are the issues that really do matter?
Good. Let's do this. I want to take a break, but I want to take a break on a question. And we'll come back and let's lay out what you believe are actual avenues for concern and what you are not concerned by going forward. Cohen et al., Mueller, what should be done with the report, because now the White House has new reporting tonight saying they believe the special counsel guidelines give protection to the president. I want to go through that with your mind. But let me ask you this as we go to break.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Don't fake cough me, Governor.
No, I won't.
I'll watch you pass
I'm watching that clock. Here we go.
Yeah, I know. Keep coughing. Jared Kushner, are you surprised that the people in the business of knowing and judging have questions about his background?
No.
You think they are real questions?
Listen, I have faith in the FBI and the CIA, so I believe there are real questions. Now, they may not be unresolvable questions, but I believe they're real questions. Sure. Sure. I mean, I don't have any doubt about that.
Well, many in your party do. It is good to hear a different answer. Let's take a break. When we come back, Governor Chris Christie, what are the avenues of concern with this probe and the investigations that are ongoing, which are not? Conversation worth having. Stay with us. heavy stuff tonight. The president's family is back in the spotlight, and not for good reason. In particular, son-in-law Jared Kushner. How did he get his security clearance? We were told by the White House, by the president, by Ivanka Trump, normal channels. The New York Times is reporting, and the Washington Post has matched it, that is BS. John Kelly, who was the chief of staff at the time, was against it. The president forced the move. I asked Democrat now, so where does this leave us in terms of the state of play? Last night we had Congressman Stephen Lynch on. He's a Democrat. And I asked, well, what road are you going to go down? And are you going to really involve the president's kids? Because that will be a major move and will have major repercussions. Here's what he said.
We're looking for people who are also can corroborate Mr. Cohen's testimony or dispute it.
But that is like real dynamite. You bring in the president's kids.
Yeah.
You're asking for a war, are you not?
I think we have one.
I think we have one. Back now with former governor of New Jersey, Chris Chri, author of Let Me Finish. In it, there is a whole recitation of why the governor was sideways with Jared Kushner, his insight into the family dynamic, and its toxicity to the cause. Governor, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
And look, I have to say, thank you for speaking to these issues. I know that there's a little bit more ease doing it when you're not actively on the inside, but you are on the inside. You're a supporter of the president, you're in contact, and your side does not want to address what is real. So thank you for doing that. Lynch says we already have a war going on. Do you agree?
I don't. But here's what I'd say. The president placed his daughter and his son-in-law into official positions in the White House, not as informal advisors like most families are, but as official job holders in the White House. You can't say they're off limits now. Now, you can say that Eric and Donnie are a different story. They're a private business here in New York City. I think that's different. They're not involving themselves in government.
Well, except to the extent that they are involved, Don Jr. specifically, in transactions and contacts that are relevant to the interference.
But that wasn't about government, though, Chris. That happened during the campaign, and Bob Mueller's looking at that.
Yes, yes.
I'm talking about what Lynch just talked about, which is if you have oversight. They're government employees, Jared and Ivanka. And so if the Congress, and I told the president this when the House was taken over by the Democrats, I said, they're not going to stop at anything. They're going to bring everybody in that they think they have to bring in.
Do you think they should stop right now, given what we heard yesterday, and given what they already know and what we're going to learn?
I think that Michael Cohen yesterday laid out a list of witnesses that the House now has to give serious consideration to calling in, whether it's Alan Weisselberg or Jared, Ivanka, and the rest. But what I would also say to you is that there's going to be a big fight. The fight that's going to happen now, I think, is between Congress and the Southern District of New York. Because Congress had a big show yesterday, politicians like that. They're going to want more. They're going to want Alan Weisselberg. They're going to want the president's children, et cetera. The Southern District of New York, I can guarantee, is not going to want that. They're trying to build a case. And so...
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
I do.
Let's flip chairs
because of what
for a
Michael
second.
Cohen said.
Well,
Michael Cohen is saying he's in regular contact. When Michael Cohen says he's in regular contact, constant contact with the Southern District, and when Michael Cohen says that he is aware of other crimes that the president has committed, but he can't talk about them because he's instructed not to do so by the Southern District, that doesn't mean that the Southern District has a case against the president. It means they're conducting an investigation. I can tell you when I was U.S. Attorney, we were investigating the state legislature in New Jersey, and they wanted to hold hearings on something that had gone on. And I called the Senate president at the time, Dick Cody, and I said to him, Dick, do not do hearings because people are going to want immunity because they got Fifth Amendment concerns. If you give immunity, I'm not going to be able to potentially prosecute them.
How concerned are you about what we know so far and what you may know that's not in the public space that the Southern District could peel back on this president?
I've always said, Chris, that Bob Mueller is not what should concern the president or the White House. That it's the Southern District of New York. And the reason for that is threefold. First, they have no limit on their scope. Bob Mueller has a limit on his scope. It's Russia and Russia-related activities. Second, Michael Cohen. Third, Rick Gates. They have two tour guides that can take them through the Trump business and personal life. Well, Weisselberg, from what I understand, has a limited immunity, not a complete immunity.
To Cohen.
Limited immunity.
Right. So you're saying that he may not want to talk about these other things.
My guess is if I were Alan Weisselberg's lawyer, I'd say, give me total immunity. I'll tell you whatever you want. Otherwise, I'm
we
pleading
know
the fifth.
Would we know what his immunity status is?
We wouldn't. I don't think they've announced it publicly.
Right.
But I have heard.
They definitely haven't announced it publicly.
No, and I have heard that it's a limited immunity. So if that's the case, there's going to be a fight between the Congress and the Southern District of New York. But it has always been the Southern District that is the problem, that is the threat. Nobody wants their lawyer for 10 years to be now cooperating with the government, to talk to the government about your business life and your personal life. No one would want it.
How serious are the implications of, look, the lies are the lies. I don't know who Felix Sater is. He just lied. You know, we excuse it because the president lies so much. But that is an ancillary lie unless Felix winds up being relevant to a transaction that he's hiding. He lied about the Moscow deal. All right, it's not going to get that much deeper than that unless there's money involved. The stuff with the foundation, there's stuff there. How worried are you about that? Not just playing with a painting that he wanted and having a straw bidder and all that and paying for it through a foundation. That's all wrong. You can come after people like that. The AG's office does it all the time with the charities division. But what concerns you most?
What concerns me is what I don't know. Listen, I did these investigations for 7 years. I did 130 corruption investigations, got convictions without a defeat. The greatest thing about that job, I used to say, Chris, is only I know what I know. I can tell you right now, the folks at the Southern District, only they know what they know. The head of the FBI in New York is a guy who 10 years ago was running my corruption squad in New Jersey when we made all those cases. He is now in charge.
He's good?
He's very good. Special Agent Sweeney is excellent.
But if you're running the Southern District and the DOJ has guidance, a couple different memos that say you can't indict a sitting president, what are you burning my tax dollars for?
Oh, you're not burning your tax dollars because what they're doing, I'm confident, is building a case for two things. One, to go after those around the president who may have committed crimes. And two, to build a case, if they have one, I don't think they have one at the moment, but if they were trying, they're trying to build one, against the president for when he leaves office. Statute of limitations on most of this stuff, my guess is would not run.
So let me get your take on this and then one political question.
Okay.
So the White House puts out word tonight. We think the special counsel regs protect the president. All right. In the regs, I don't agree. Okay. Neil Katyal, who wrote the regs,
yeah, I saw Neil,
doesn't agree. Okay? More importantly, who cares if I agree? Yep. He doesn't agree. He wrote the regs. It says that putting out the report to the AG could be told upon a finding of legitimate investigative or privacy concerns requiring confidentiality, and it can be released when those concerns don't exist anymore. And then there's a next provision is, but by the way, all of that is subject to the AG thinking that it shouldn't come out in the public interest. Right. Do you think it should come out, and do you think they have effective legal cover?
I think Bill Barr will release everything he thinks should be released.
But what does that mean?
Well, I think what it means is, remember why these things were written. And Neil was very cute tonight. I saw him on the show earlier. I have him in front of me. I'm not really sure. That was written, and that statute was written in response to the Ken Starr report.
And Iran-Contra.
Right? That all of this kind of ancillary information got out there.
It's too thick.
And it's like what Jim Comey did to Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
Right? Now, I think we've got to prevent that. In this country, we either have to charge or we have to shut up. Now, the thing that complicates it here is if it's about the president, you have impeachment as the only remedy. So I think what will happen, what will play out here is if Bill Barr holds back any of the report, and I think he will hold back some based upon those principles, the Congress will then subpoena that report because they'll say...
Or Comey, or both.
I think that they will subpoena the report from Bill Barr. Congress has the right to do that subpoenaing. And there'll then be a fight over whether or not Congress is entitled to that report because it's the only thing that can give them information to inform the decision on whether to impeach or not. I don't know where the courts come down on that one. I don't know the statute well enough. But what I'll tell you is that that's going to be a legitimate fight. But the other thing I'll tell you is Bill Barr's going to err on the side of releasing as opposed to holding back.
I think so.
I do. Because I think, listen, Bill Barr is an outstanding lawyer, a guy of great integrity. I've known him for a long time. And I think, he knows the public import of this information. But I think we all have to be cautioned by what happened in 2016. That had a material effect on the election.
Yep.
And Jim Comey shouldn't have done it.
True.
It was wrong to do it. And it would be wrong, despite the hysteria that's going on right now, for Bill Barr to do something similar. Now, the difference here is that Congress would be looking to subpoena that. Hillary Clinton couldn't be impeached. She was just a candidate for president. The president's the president. So I think that's where this fight's going to come down to. I think what you and I are going to see, maybe 6 months from now, maybe 9 months from now, is a fight in the United States Supreme Court based on a House subpoena over whether or not Bill Barr must turn over the entirety of Bob Mueller's report.
Do you think that the leadership of your party should do more to check this president's abuse of the truth to the American people?
Listen, I think the American people are in charge of holding him to account for that. In the end, whatever, because everyone's going to have a different view of it, Chris. I know the way you feel strongly about it. I feel a little bit differently than you do about it, and I think there are probably people out there who feel like the president is abused and beaten every day by a media that's unfair to him and has written more negative stories about him than any president in recent memory.
With cause.
Right, well, but Chris, regardless, we have to understand that we live in the real world where people have different points of view.
100%.
Ultimately.
That's what this show's all about.
Ultimately, I think that it's the American people who are going to get to decide whether or not the president deserves re-election or not. I don't believe that anything I have seen so far merits the president being impeached at all. I think that's outlandish. I don't see anything at this point that equals that, because you're overturning an election, and that's a grave thing to do.
Understood.
Only been done twice in our history.
Understood.
And only led to one resignation, right? So I think ultimately it's the American people to decide this. What do they want from a president? But I say to people all the time, no one should be surprised by a lot of this stuff. The president has, we were talking earlier about how he doesn't, go along with any of the norms of what we've gotten to understand and learn about public life in this country. Guess what? That's what people voted for. That's what they voted for, Chris. They were so upset about Washington, D.C., that if you had a title in front of your name when you were running in 2016, it was a detriment.
100%.
And they
sometimes
wanted someone
to
to
be careful what you ask for
that's
in terms
right.
of restoring integrity to a process when you put somebody in there who's abused it more than anyone we've ever seen.
But here's
before.
what I believe in. I believe in the American people making those judgments.
True, me too.
Right? So we're going to have an election in 2020. I assume the president's going to be the nominee of our party. Democrats will nominate someone, and we'll make a choice. The American people will make a choice.
But with one caveat. Everybody on the right side of the aisle who's up for election also, they're going to be held to what they did and did not do with this
By the way, they were held to account in 2018. That's why they lost the House.
Telling me.
Oh, that's it.
Governor Chris Christie, there are not many people on your side of the aisle, even though we should all be in the same family, who want to have this conversation. Thank you for doing it.
My pleasure, Chris.
I appreciate it. Okay, the book is Let Me Finish. I don't know why it's called that, because I've only had him overrun me every time we talk. Anyway, he always gets to finish. That's the book. Governor Chris Christie, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. So, look, I harp on the president's abuse of the truth. Why? Because if we don't have that, it is a very difficult job to go anywhere else that's positive in the name of progress. Now his son-in-law, accused of getting top security clearance despite warnings. Where does it take us? That's the great debate. Let's have it next. This new reporting tonight from the New York Times and now matched by the Washington Post directly contradicts the president's statements that he had nothing to do with his son-in-law's security clearance, that he lied to you. Now, listen to this.
The president had no involvement pertaining to my clearance or my husband's clearance.
That's not true. So, what do we do? Proof. Internal memo reportedly written by former Chief of Staff John Kelly refuting it, saying that the president ordered him to give Kushner top secret clearance over expressed concerns from intelligence officials and people who do that job for a living. Also a memo by the White House counsel about the same reservation. Why lie? What do we do about it? Great debate. Jennifer Granholm and Rick Santorum are here. Let me push my luck. Chris Christie speaking truth to power. Will Rick Santorum double down, or did you get it out of your system by telling the truth about Otto warm beer? If Ivanka Trump looked in the face of that camera and said something that is a lie, and if the President of the United States lied to us about the security clearance, what does that mean to you?
It's disappointing if
disappointing.
Ivanka,
the fact that I
mean,
can't lose weight is disappointing. Lying to the American people about a security clearance?
Look, I mean, I go back to what Chris was saying. I mean, this is a family member that the president's known a long time and feels like he knows, knows Jared Kushner inside and out, and believes that he's someone he can trust, and that's who he's going to be dealing with. I don't know. Look, I mean, every time I come on your program, Chris, you ask me the same question.
What does that tell you?
No, well, I think that does tell you something. That we're always talking about something the president said that was not factual, was not factual, and misleading the public. Okay, lie. Whatever.
It matters. It matters, Rick. Look, it matters. And you know what? Before I go any further,
look, I don't like it.
Hold on. You're going to want me to say this.
Disappointing.
You're going to want me to say this. You're going to want me to say this. I congratulate you for what you said about Otto Warmbier. Your party doesn't want to stand up to him. They're afraid of him. Yes, you don't have a primary to worry about, but you spoke truth to power, and it matters, especially on that. So I congratulate you for that, and I appreciate you taking this on. But let me not dominate it with just you. Jen, look, Governor, we see what's going on here, okay? How do you check this? That's the question. And I know that this is not the only administration where there have been lies. We've just never seen this much. And it seems to permeate the entire fabric of what the president touches. What is to be done?
It is a cancer. It is a cancer upon this entire White House. And it is such a shame that the Republicans in Congress are being accomplices to these lies. 8,700 lies by the Washington Post fact checkers as of the 15th of February of this year. 8,700. That's 15 lies a day. And most of the lies, Chris, are about the president trying to cover something up or protect him in some way or embellish. It's always about something that he has done or hasn't done. And in this case, I mean, this is about a security clearance. What you've seen now is clearance by nepotism, as Adam Schiff pointed out earlier today. Mm-hmm. That is a danger for the U.S. These are not just innocuous lies. I mean, the Otto Warmbier thing, that maybe wasn't a lie in that sense, but here you have a president who was saying something entirely different at the State of the Union address. I mean, thank you, Rick, for pointing this out, that it was reprehensible. But he condemned Kim Jong-un's regime as brutal and despotism. And now, all of a sudden, he flips because he doesn't want the American people to believe that he walked away from a deal and it's off for good. He wants to keep the door open so that he can perpetuate this notion that he's going to get some kind of nuclear deal. So, I don't know. It rots. The fish rots at the head, that old line. It's so true. And what Michael Cohen said yesterday about having lied for this president for 10 years, that lying culture permeates an entire administration, and that is what you are seeing. And that's why this cancer has to be removed.
Rick,
we need a Trumpectomy.
Trumpectomy. Rick, are you worried about your party paying the price for this in 2020?
Look, I've admitted here tonight, and I've admitted many times yesterday on AC, I did the same thing. Look, this president tells a lot of untruths that are unnecessary, that are just I don't understand. But the reality is that we had a previous president who told very material lies. No, did he put out things that were factually incorrect on a regular basis? No, he didn't. But on some very important things like your health care and like the Iranian nuclear deal and a whole host of other things, the president and by previous presidents told lies. All this president has done.
Whataboutism. It is not equal.
It's not whataboutism. It's
equal.
My point, which you haven't allowed me to make yet, is that.
All right, make your point, and then I have to go. So go ahead. I want you to make your point.
The point I'm trying to make is that we have a public who sees elected officials and presidents as people, they don't tell the truth all the time. And so, they don't see. I understand you're upset with Trump, but I don't think the American public sees Trump as being materially different than previous presidents.
Well, look, that'll be the subject matter of an election. And you know what? It should be. Governor, thank you. Rick, double thank you to you for what you said, because not many speak truth to power these days on your side of the aisle, and I appreciate it. And thank you for coming on the show. All right. So, speaking of speaking truth to power, things got very heated between two lawmakers at the Cohen hearing yesterday on the subject of race. Now, troubling video is emerging of one. We're going to tell you about it next. Videos resurfaced of Meadows making birther comments about Barack Obama back in 2012. Listen for yourself to a piece.
So what we're going to do is take back our country. 2012 is the time that we're going to send Mr. Obama home to Kenya or wherever it is.
D. Lemon, thank you for being here.
There's another one, too, of him
yes.
saying very similar things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that a racist statement?
Well, if you consider that their whole birther thing was a lie, yes, it's a racist statement. I mean, as I said last night in my opening, because you say something that's racist or you do something that's racist, it may not mean the entire part of you is racist, but yes, this whole conspiracy theory and lie that Barack Obama was not born in the United States is indeed racist because you're otherizing him and you're questioning whether he is an American citizen.
So his
and
only
also
defense,
using it to rile people up, saying we're going to send him back to Kenya. What else is it?
So his only defense would be,
go back to Africa.
I believed it. If he says, I believe that he wasn't born here, that's fine, because then he's not owning it as a deception. But if he meant it to play along to the deception and go back to Africa, literally, racist.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's evidence. He showed you the birth certificate, and why would you? Why would you question that?
Then why did Tlaib apologize?
Why? Why? Why did Tlaib apologize for what?
Calling him a racist.
Well, she said the act of what he did was racist, not that he was racist. There is a distinction there.
Tell me.
Well, Chris, you're a smart person, don't you think?
Yeah, but I just want you to go through it.
But do you do stupid things sometimes?
All the
you
time.
Make stupid decisions?
With stunning frequency.
Does that then undercut your intelligence? It's your human being. You do things.
It does, though. Sometimes I do stupid things and it makes me hate myself.
Well, so you can do something that is racist and you're ignorant of it and you don't know about it.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that necessarily the entire part of you, doesn't mean that you are a part of the KKK, doesn't mean that you run around saying the N-word. That's the thing. People think that in order to be racist, and the former president said this, Barack Obama, he actually used the word, is that they think it's like running around calling people the N-word, or that you have to be part of some organization, like the guys who are marching in Charlottesville. That's not part of, sometimes it is implicit bias. And so on. Look, I had this whole thing. I didn't want you to prepare anything because I had a surprise for you. Do you want it or not? You want the surprise?
Yeah, go ahead. I want the surprise. I always want the surprise.
Okay, so here's what happened. So I was looking for something on the subject that you and I did, and I was doing a Google search, and I hit the shopping button by accident, and this started coming up. You know who that is? Who has that haircut on our air?
Kate Baldwin?
That's Kate Baldwin. So Kate will get this shirt, all right? Who's that?
Rick Santorum?
That's Jake Tapper.
Oh.
Jake will get that shirt. Who's this guy?
Oh, that's AC, baby.
That's Anderson.
The one and only. OAO.
Who's that guy?
Oh, man, Melonhead.
That's me. That's the first
man,
one.
that's a whole lot of lemon.
And who is this guy?
Uh-oh, there's your boy.
And Chris.
That's a good hairline.
Look what I did, because you know I call you both sides COUMO.
Uh-huh. What'd you do on the other side? Oh. If that's you, I hope it's going to cover my butt when I wear it. I'm going to pull it down in the back.
So I didn't show, but that's the one I was like,
so wow, the one you got of yourself had 3 times the size of your face on the front of the shirt. What does that mean?
I needed to fit both sides on it for you, so I guess they knew, and so they made it a smaller.
Some big nostrils in that picture.
Well, there you go.
Well, thank you for the gift. And happy birthday to you.
Oh, stop it.
You're going to be 62.
25. I'm still younger than you, no matter.
25. You look great.
You look great.
And people say all the Botox and surgery isn't worth it.
Wait. I'm mad now.
Now, look at that. Can't do that, can you? It's a lot of money I put into that.
I need a toupee to do that.
Right, I got to go.
We got to go.
I'll see you in a little bit. Happy birthday, my brother.
Bye.
I love you.
Thank you.
Where's he going? All right. He's got a show in like 4 minutes. All right, so you heard it. I heard it. We all heard the president do it again. He let a despot off the hook, this time for the death of an American. It's not just him. Do you hear this? That's all the silence from the Republican leadership in Congress. I won't let it go. You shouldn't, and I'll argue why. Next.